Hello again, Steve here, and today I'm going to do a little bit of an unscripted ramble, and hopefully there's some sort of a lesson that we can, or I can derive from this ramble, this scramble, when it's all said and done. And this is along the lines, I would say, of us not being afraid to ask people what's going on. If we can, especially if we can learn something from them, what's going on, like what are you up to in life and stuff like that, and having the courage to say, hey, you know what, you want to go for a coffee and have a chat, you know, because this is along the lines of this. Some of I go to Toastmasters, and in Toastmasters, okay, we do all kinds of public speaking, leadership training, and what have you. But there's not really a connection with people that much unless we say to somebody, hey, you want to go for a coffee sometime, let's have a chat. Then it's kind of a one-on-one. Otherwise, during the event, it's the event that's going on. It's not that gravity of what's actually going on inside of ourselves. And every once in a while, when I see something that's a little bit unique about somebody, and there's sort of an interplay of connection, there leads to that question, hey, would you like to go for coffee, whatever. And that's kind of what I did. One of the things I did yesterday was, well, it was led on by a little bit of a story here, just a little bit of a backstory. Years ago, back in the early 90s, I was quite into self-development. That's when I wrote my first book, which was called How to Have All the Money You'll Ever Need While Experiencing Life as One Continuous Orgasm. I was big into money and orgasms at the time, which to some extent I still am. But that was sort of right at the pinnacle of my experience. And anyways, there was this guy in Vancouver who was sort of a financial guru kind of guy, Alan Jacks, and he got in cahoots with this spiritual guru who was going to teach us, like in the song cover of the Rolling Stone, we have a genuine Indian guru teaching us a better way. Well, this was our Indian guru. Larry Hope was his name, and he actually ended by closing us all and going into the jungles of Belize for a month to really find ourselves. So, anyways, this guy, and but it was really a shit show, because by the end of it, there was divided loyalties between the two gurus, the financial guru and the spiritual guru, and it kind of split the group up. I went down the road of the spiritual hippie guru for quite a number of years, and anyways, but this Alan Jacks guy, he went on to be a very successful financial planner and what have you, and what happens with me sometimes is, because those were the days before any kind of social media and YouTube and all that. But every once in a while, I'll look up and see, where is this guy. And I hadn't seen anything to do with Alan Jacks for years. And then all of a sudden, I found him in an event in Vancouver speaking. Even at the time, he had Parkinson's, but by now he had really, really bad Parkinson's. And there was this guy, Dan Lok, this Chinese guy who was leading these sort of self-help seminars and what have you, and he brought in Alan Jacks, who was one of his mentors. And I go, that's interesting, because I knew Alan Jacks and what have you. So ever since then, anyways, long story short, I've watched some of Dan Lok's stuff, because he's got some, it's L-O-K, by the way, and he's got some great stuff, and he's really, he doesn't hold back and swear words and all kinds of stuff, which is kind of, I appreciate. And he's got some really good stuff on public speaking and basic sales and all kinds of stuff like that. He's got a program to help people to become more confident and whatever, and which is interesting because of what I'm doing with the Inner Genie Project, right? Anyway, I was watching this video a couple of days ago, and it was Dan Lok describing his financial fitness or his sales fitness program or whatever, and then he had testimonials at the end, which a lot of people have. In fact, I have it on my innergenie.com. I have some testimonials there as well. But these were video testimonials, very well done. And all of a sudden, I see this guy that I know from here. He's one of the, and I'm thinking, aha, that's interesting. Like, I knew there was something special about this guy. Like, he wasn't just your average individual who wasn't under some sort of training, right? I mean, I thought he was a network marketer. I figured he was an Amway guy, but turns out he's a student of Dan Lok. So I sent him a text, and I said, hey, do you I saw you on video, and I see you're associated with Dan Lok. I've been watching some of Dan Locke's stuff, and I said I knew one of Dan Locke's mentors, one of his gurus. So he knew this guy. He said, was it Alan Jacks, or was it Dan Pena? And I know of Dan Pena as well, another guy who likes to swear quite a bit. And anyway, so the invitation was, hey, let's go for coffee. And I knew this was going to be a great conversation, so we spent a couple hours over coffee, tea, and whatever, muffins, having a great chat. And there's always something value that comes from this. It's like going to a seminar. It might cost a lot, take some of your time or whatever, but there's always, if you're open-minded, there's always something you're going to glean from that, some kind of a takeaway, right? So one of the takeaways he had was he gave me a couple of names of people that I could have a look into and what have you that would help to sort of motivate me. And one of them guys he sent me was this guy David Goggins, and I'll put a link to the video that he sent me about this guy David Goggins. And he said you might be interested in this guy because he had this young guy that I was talking to over coffee. He had come to know through our conversation that I had done an epic walk a couple of years ago, Freedom Walk, and that I had learned things about how powerful the mind is. So powerful it could actually kill the body. Like, it's absolutely humongously powerful. And I had learned about how the special forces could push people to the brink of complete collapse. And at that point, if they make the breakthrough, they're only maybe 10% of their capabilities. Become like a Superman at that point. And I'd experienced that, about how I could drive the body to it's just an internal work. Anyways, what this Goggins guy was saying, and I'll put a link in the bottom, and I really recommend anybody who really wants to take their life to another level and to really get to the point of understanding the value of pain. I've been talking about this for a while, and some people look at me like with a blank stare, like, what the fuck are you talking about? The value of pain. I had a coffee chat about it a couple of weeks ago, and people necessarily, I mean, obviously, and for good reason, people try to avoid pain like I do. But to understand the value of it is to understand to take life to another level. Is to understand old scriptures and so on, what they're talking about, of how, what did Goggins say here? The drive. I forget. He said so many different things in here. He talks about how he's got 2 jars. He's got his cookie jar, which is all where his little pleasures in life are, right? But he's also got his jar of fuck. Like all the crap that's going on in his life, and both of those motivate him. He doesn't even use the term motivation. He uses the term drive. Like, he realized that he had a messed up upbringing. Like, his dad, I think, was gone, and his mom was always gone most of the time, and he was, people used to call him nigger in school and stuff like that, and I can relate to that too, because that's what I was called, believe it or not. Like, I can relate to a lot of things. A lot of times people think that, so-called white people have not suffered and so on. Well, you know what? yeah. I mean, I saw my brother hung up by the neck when I was a kid. That's how rough the school I was in. And it fucked me up for a long time. I was gang attacked by, adults, and had the shit kicked out of me in elementary years and stuff like that at the school I went to. I saw a guy get thrown into a barrel of glass and roll down a hill and shit. I mean, there's bad shit went on. But I mean, the point of the matter is, and what he's talking about here is, we can use all of that. All of that. He talks about pain as he has, like nobody else I've ever seen talk. He's got a way of describing the value of pain in a real visceral way. It's not about liking something. It's like you have to, if you want something of real value, there's a price to it. And this idea that the people today are such unbelievable pussies and soft. He talks about how it doesn't take nearly as much today to be great in a way, if that's our competition. So anyway, it is a bit of a ramble, I know, that I'm going on here, but I just highly recommend anybody who's really down and trying to figure out how to get the hell up. You know what? That downness might be your greatest, that darkness might be the greatest drive to get up and go and see the light, And it's really great to hear people like this, because so many of us, we have those dark nights of the soul and what have you. and we think, oh, life is over or whatever. No, that can be the greatest beginning. That can be the greatest thrust to drive us on to something great. And also the other thing I like about what Goggins is talking about how, you know, so many of us, we live in this outside world of percent. And he talked about how he would be on this fad and that fad. He'd have his pants down for a while. He'd try that, and then he'd have his pants up for a while, and then he'd puff himself up as this and that and the other thing. And finally he figured it out. Fuck it, just be myself. Go inside and figure out what's the real going on here. And to hell with what anybody else thinks. He talked about one time that he was so out of the loop. He was trying to get into the popular table in the lunchroom at school, right? And he was not allowed there because, no niggers here kind of thing. He's a black guy. I'm using his terms, right? And so he said, to hell with it. Fuck you guys. Then I'll go sit by myself and be myself. And all of a sudden, his became the popular place of the weirdos, right? So that's what a lot of time in life, if we can finally get that in life, and I heard people talk about it before, about how, they'll be, if only I could find the right partner, I'll have it made in life. How about getting ourselves to the point that we got to be okay with what's here, right? And be true to what's here. And when we're true to what's here, then we become attractive. When we're always trying to be somebody else and measure up with the Joneses and stuff like that, we're always living a half life. And that's the other thing he talks about a lot too. To really experience life in its fullest is to experience suffering, is to experience joy and so on. And he says that people look at him and they think he's crazy with all that swearing and all that sort of stuff. But he said, you wouldn't believe how happy I am, how contented I am. And that's what I talk about in the Inner Genie Project too, is reaching fulfillment. And fulfillment doesn't mean that we're all pampered and titillating ourselves and jerking off all day. No, it can mean we're actually facing life, going up against the challenges, and being, and being driven by that, being driven to overcome. That's what life really is. You look at life in its rawest form. You look at the animals; they're constantly working. They don't sit down. Look at ants; they're constantly hustling and what have you. And the forces of life and the elements and so on are coming at them. And life is about living for a while until we're dead. Why the hell don't we live on the edge? Why do we put up with this nonsense socialist coddling idea? No, that's not living. That is to die in a way. Is to die, but to be held alive by, external forces. Let's live. And one of the things I learned with my 83-kilometer walk is there can be that breakthrough. And when I walked overnight one time, and I realized, that we can have this internal world that can drive us so strong, and it's just amazing. It's amazing, and to the point where we can pretty much kill ourselves, but we don't kill ourselves. It's sort of like what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. There's so much truth to that. Yeah, so I'll put a link in the box below if you can have a look at it. David Goggins, great motivational or driven talk, you could say. And there's probably I'll look at more of his stuff too. But Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. And by all means, visit innergenie.com and send me an email if you want to get in touch with me. Talk again soon. Bye for now.